Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Water Rights Fee Stakeholder Meeting. It's currently 1 o'clock, and I was going to give it a few more minutes until we get started, give an opportunity for others to log into the meeting and join us. So just give it a couple of minutes and we'll go ahead and get started. Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the State Water Resources Control Board's Water Rights Fee Stakeholder Meeting. This meeting is being held virtually through Zoom and the webcast platforms, and also is being recorded. My name is David Ceccarelli. I'm the Fee and Revenue Branch Chief within the Division of Administrative Services. Today, we have many of our Fee and Revenue Branch staff working behind the scenes to ensure that this meeting runs as smoothly as possible. If at any time throughout the event you find that you're having some technical difficulties, please go ahead and email us. The email is on the screen right now. It's waterrightsfees@waterboards.ca.gov. Also joining us today is John Russell, the Deputy Director of the Division of Administrative Services, and also assisting me in the presentation from the Fee and Revenue Branch is Cassandra White and Josh Warblum. And there's also program staff from the Division of Water Rights also on the call. So individuals attending via Zoom, please use the raise the hand function if you'd like to ask a question or provide a comment. If you're joining us through the webcast, you can also submit a comment or question by emailing an email to us. And then we'll have staff monitoring those emails and we'll go ahead and get to them as we can. In the past, there has been some delay in the broadcast through the webcast. Therefore, through the meeting, staff may pause so the broadcast can catch up to the listeners. Again, we thank you for joining us virtually today. We thank you for your patience as we move to this 100% virtual meeting space. We're doing our best to ensure that everyone can participate in an effective way. So I just wanted to go over just a few meeting guidelines. One, remember to use the handouts that were sent to you via the email. If you do not have the handouts, don't worry. We'll be sharing the documents on the screen throughout the meeting. And the handouts are also posted on our Water Board's fee webpage. Remember, again, as I mentioned, if you have any technical difficulties, please email us. Please remember to mute yourself if you're not speaking. And then again, you can submit comments and questions throughout the event through the email, and we'll go ahead and again get to those as they come in. And for the meeting to run efficiently and stay on track, we're requesting that each participant who wants to ask a question, please ask one question at a time. I understand you may have a clarifying question to your original question, and then that's acceptable. Once your question is fully answered, we're going to move on to the next participant's question, and you'll be put back into the order of participants who are requesting to ask a question. In addition, respect all opinions and input. However, the discussion starts to move away from the intent of the meeting, which is water rights fees, then I'm going to ask that the participant and I meet offline to coordinate these discussions further, and I can involve appropriate staff as needed. So let's move to the agenda. Let me review the agenda next. Thank you. Can we just scroll down just a little bit further there? There we go. So first item, so we'll be going over the water rights fund condition, which is attachment 1. And then we'll go over the water rights budget cost drivers. These are the cost drivers for fiscal year 23-24, which is attachment 2. There is one BCP that has an impact to the water rights fund. We'll be discussing that. This BCP was part of the May revise. Then there's a slight change, so we'll have some discussion on a proposed change to the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Zach Mayo from the program staff is here, so when that time comes, I'll pass it on to him. And then I'll talk about our staff's recommendations as we're moving forward on fee adjustments for this fiscal year. And then we'll have an open discussion, and then next steps, which are driving to taking a board item to the board on September 19th for consideration and adoption. So before I get into, of course, the agenda and the handouts, I just want to introduce John Russell, the Deputy Director of Division of Administrative Services, and if he has any opening statements at this time.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to welcome you all and thank you for taking a few minutes of your time to join us today. We do value your input. We pass it on to all of our board members, the things that we hear in these meetings. So it is important to us for you to be here to provide input to us. So we appreciate it. It's not on the agenda, but a little bit later, David will remind me to talk a little bit about a couple of the general fund investments that are being made in the water rights area, and they are fairly significant for the next couple of years. So we'll just spend a minute or two about that at the end of the meeting. But back to you, David.
Thank you, John. So we'll go and get started here. Let's move to item number 2, which is the water rights fund condition. Can we scroll down? Is this on 2 pages? Can we? Yeah. So let me just, I guess, start right here. Basically, we haven't closed the books. Our accounting office hasn't closed the books for year-end fiscal year 22-23 yet. But we're definitely in a better position than we've been in the past years, because we are receiving monthly revenue and expenditure reports. So each time our accounting office closes a month in the fiscal year, we now have updated data on that month and plus up until that month, basically. And so what you're looking at now, and I'm just kind of touching on total revenue for 22-23, we project revenue to be nearly $34 million. So it shows 33,997 there. We showed 2 different categories here, basically, moving forward. So next category says, basically, if we do no fee increases, we're looking at remaining, fees remaining the same based on, the population that's in our systems, of 33.997. However, as we're going to get into some cost drivers, the budget has increased. And so we're looking at needing to generate basically 3% more in revenue. And so 3% more in revenues is about $800,000. So with generating 3% more in revenue, and I'll get into the details of what we're recommending to do that, but that would generate $34.8 million. So if we can scroll down here, I know these are on two different sheets here, but then kind of look at the expenditure side of things and then the ending balances. So here is the here's the expenditure side. We're anticipating expenditures to be roughly around 34 million. Again, I want to mention that again, it's still a projection. Accounting has to kind of go through the closing and then do everything kind of after the closing to kind of come up with those final expenditure numbers. But it does leave us with an ending balance of 4.9 million and about a 15% reserve, which is again a little less than the 16%. We recognize it's a little on the high side. We do recognize that. And then moving forward, if we didn't do any fee increase, basically, what basically happens is there becomes a kind of a structural deficit between program cost, between the expenditures and the revenues. And then this shows a deficit of $900,000 there, which again does drive the reserve down and gives us an ending balance of 4 million. But I always have concerns with the structural deficits between the revenues and expenditures. The reason I say that, and I've mentioned this before, is that in the future, and I don't know what additional cost drivers are going to hit the fund, but at some point I need to make up that $900,000. And so I'm always trying to balance, again, our revenues and expenditures. So that's why I was, and staff is proposing that we need a 3% more in increased revenue to cover our cost drivers. And that then balances basically our revenues and expenditures, and then would end the fund with a reserve of 14.4%. Let me just kind of, I know that we have the staff recommendations coming up here, but basically what we're looking at doing in order to generate 3% more in revenue, what staff is proposing is to increase the annual per acre foot charge for permits, licenses, and pending applications per each acre foot greater than 10 acre feet. It's a kind of a normal routine that we usually do. We're not proposing to adjust and change the base fee at this time. What we're also proposing at this time is staff is not proposing any increases for fees for the Clean Water Act 401 certification for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission for projects that are already licensed or that are undergoing license. So we're not proposing any adjustments to FERC. The reason due to that is because looking at revenues in that program compared to their expenditures and of course their share of all the other costs and their reserve, revenues are meeting that need at this time. So we're not proposing any adjustments to FERC at this time. And then finally, we do this every year, is that staff is proposing to increase the caps on the fees for the water rights applications and the change petitions involving transfers of water pursuant to water codes and their several of them, 382, 1435, 10062, 10064, 1701, 1725, and 1735. And these fees are based off, these changes will be based off the consumer price index. And that is roughly, I believe it's about 7.3%, which the Department of Industrial Relations is calculating at this time. So again, that's changing those caps is kind of our standard process that we do every year. And looking back at the back at our fee payers, we don't have anyone that's hitting that cap at this time also. So I just wanted to mention that also. So so by making those changes, then what that'll do is generate, again, 3% more in revenue, which will help cover our cost drivers, which balances our fund, and you know, covers our costs moving forward. So it looks like, Bob, you have your hand up.
Yes, I did, and thank you. I have one reservation about the reserve. The 2.5% rate increase is de minimis and fine, at least in my unsettled opinion. However, going forward, we have in the past used the reserves to moderate rate increases. So I'd like everyone to be mindful that that reserve is fee payer funding. And one of the uses may be to help out the fee payers in the future. Obviously, this year is wonderful and everything's copacetic. But let's keep in mind, one, I think 15% is high, even given your structural deficit, but that's just me. But there's more than one use for it, and we ought to keep that in mind for next fiscal year and beyond. Thanks.
Right. And I thank you for that comment, Bob. And it's definitely, like, as John mentioned earlier, we listen to all comments, and it's what we'll, you know, pass to the board, because the board ultimately makes kind of the final decision. Again, one of the things, though, I will recommend just financially managing this is looking at not doing an increase. The structural deficit goes about $900,000. Or true, there's a reserve, but at some point, you know, that $900,000 is going to need to be made up. And again, not having a crystal ball and not knowing what's going to hit the fund in 24, 25, I'd hate to have to put forward, you know, the increases for 24, 25, but also looking back and saying, you know, I got to make up some of this 900,000. So, but no, I appreciate your comments. Chuck, good afternoon, Chuck. You have your hand up.
Thank you very much.
Chuck, I think you're on mute.
Oh, am I still?
I can hear you now. So I didn't hear you a few seconds ago. So
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I have only one quick question. You mentioned that the only fee increase for agricultural lands would be greater than 10 acres. But wasn't clear to me what that increase was going to be. Is that going to be the 3%, or is that going to be something different to make up the fact that the less than 10 is not being increased, or did I misunderstand?
exactly. So if the base fee on the permits, the licenses, and the pending applications, the application portion would not pay anything. And it wouldn't be paying anything for less than 10 acre feet but those that have 10 acre feet or greater, those are the ones that would get a 3% increase.
Okay, 3% for those only. So, and that makes up all your structural imbalance that you want. But I agree with what Bob said, is just maybe this is a year to forego the increase and just keep the reserve, at or above 10%, which is what you use for a water quality standard, as I recall.
Well, I will say that the reserve for water quality is a little less, but it's also a bigger fund. So when we're dealing with smaller funds, we try to have a little higher reserve. Yep. But no, Chuck, I appreciate your comments.
Great, thank you.
I'm not hearing any other comments at this time. Anything on there we go. Good afternoon, Steve. You have your hand raised.
Yeah, just real quick. On one of our future meetings, it might be helpful to know how the reserve has fluctuated, not necessarily on a percentage basis, but on a dollar basis for a future discussion. But I'll leave it at that as a comment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm not hearing anything on this item right now. We could always come back. So let's go ahead and move to item number 3. And so these are, we're going to have Josh and Cassandra kind of walk through these. These are the budget cost drivers. And basically what it's reflecting is that the change in the cost drivers from what we set fees off of from last year, from 22-23, then what's in the enacted budget is about a 2.5% change. So I'll go ahead and let Josh go ahead and discuss this.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I'm Josh. Be going over this. Like David just said, this first table just shows the fee setting budget from last fiscal year, about 34.1 million, followed by the enacted budget for 23 and 24 at a 34.9 million, or about a net difference of 840,000 to 2.5%. So the next table, or table 2, shows kind of what's driving that. First, with state operations, we see a minor increase, 450,000, or about 1.3%. This covers primarily employee compensation, i.e. salaries, healthcare, retirement, plus it reflects a decreased contribution to the cannabis program. After that, we have pro rata, pretty nominal change. I also do want to point out that the numbers are the same from the May revise. So we're not really seeing any changes from then to now, but we're at about 220,000 in pro rata, or about 0.7%. Next is our CDTFA cost, California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. This allotment is for the expenditures incurred for processing the Water Rights Fund annual invoices and collection activities. There was a slight increase of 6,000, which is less than 0% increase. It's not really measurable. So pretty nominal change there. And then last is our fiscal year 23-24 BCP, the Division of Admin Services, which was added in May. That we introduced in our June stakeholder meeting. This one's about $2.3 million in continuous funding from the various special funds for 15 permanent positions. The Water Rights Fund portion of it, it's about 164,000, or about 0.5% increase. The fund sources for this are the waste discharge permit, safe drinking water account, underground storage tank cleanup, state water quality control fund, federal trust fund, the Water Rights Fund, safe and affordable drinking water fund, and the cannabis tax fund. The purpose of this, the resources will be used to address increased administrative workload due to the rapid and evolving program growth, increased resource management and tracking workload, and reporting requirements to the Division of Administrative Services. So just once again to kind of recap, the changes are the same from June stakeholder meeting, but a 2.5% increase overall with some nominal changes in the cost drivers themselves. Biggest one being either state ops or the new BCP. Any questions on these?
So thank you, Josh. So yeah, regarding that BCP, of course, it was talked about a little bit this morning, and it was in the May revise. The BCP, of course, was, definitely for a larger amount. The 164,000 is just a share regarding the Water Rights Fund. I believe when we were looking at WDPF earlier this morning, it was closer to 900,000. Of course, it's a larger fund, so more of it's going to be spread out to some of our larger funds, including the underground storage tank cleanup fund. So again, the program's being increased by $842,000. So if there's no questions here, let's move to the next slide. Which I think we just, which was item number 4, which we basically just which we just covered. But that link there, if will take you to the Department of Finance's webpage, which will basically show you what the BCP was that was approved in the governor's budget. Which moves me to item number 5, which we have a slight kind of change to our proposed changes to the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Fee regulations, and joining us is Zach Mayo. Good afternoon, Zach, and go ahead and I'll let you kick it off here.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Yeah, so with Sigma program, we have 3 proposed changes to the Sigma fee regulations. The first proposed change is an expansion to the regulation regarding who is considered a qualified individual with respect to installing certified meters. The second change that we are proposing is expanding the entities that are eligible for fee waivers. And the last change that we are proposing is specifically defining what equipment counts as a meter. So those are the three changes.
So basically what we're doing here, Zach, is we're adding kind of clarifying language, right, to the fee structure that kind of helps better, those that are in the program identify the needs and help clarify it. It doesn't, again, there's no like fee actual changes, right? Like that would change the amount of fees. We want to make that clear, but it's more or less more just clarification at this point.
Yeah, it's clarification, exactly.
And so, Bob, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, real quick question. Is our BFF Paul Goslin aware of this, and does he approve?
I'm not sure. David Rose is on the call. He might be more. I'm not sure if Paul Goslin is apprised of this. David?
Yeah, this is more internal about who is subject to the fee and who's subject to the exemptions. So it's more internal about the board supporting its own Sigma program. I don't think there's any conflict with anything DWR is doing, but that's the best non-answer I can give you, Bob.
Thank you for your candor, and please do send him or one of his folks an email, a little heads up. It helps all of us. Thanks.
Appreciate it. We're in regular communication with DWR on all aspects of the Sigma program.
Except for this one.
Sean, I just saw you come on screen. So did you have something to add or?
Yeah, I was just going to say, while we're talking about Sigma, that was one of the areas that we had a significant general fund investment both this year and then next year. So that was about $5 million for each of those 2 years. And it was to fund 19 additional staff in that program. And then we are hoping that we'll be shifting over to be fully fee supported after next year. And if not, we'll have to have a discussion with finance and the legislature about that. And then the other general fund investment that we got was about $31 million for the second half of the water rights modernization project. So that's the upgrade of our computer system that's doing water rights.
Do you have your hand raised?
This is Chuck White. Are you talking to me?
Yes, your hand's raised.
Yeah, it is hand raised. Yeah. Quick question on number 5. Zach gave us a presentation of those 3 categories, but he spoke a little faster than I could write. So is it in writing somewhere that I could just get a quick summary of what those 3 areas that was changed for Sigma?
Yeah, I can go through them again if you'd like. I can slow down a little bit.
Or just send me an email, either way.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have Zach send you an email.
Yep.
And then, of course, it's going to be a few weeks away, but when our staff's agenda item, our proposals come out for the board, of course, we'll have them listed in there also.
And just one more question, if I may.
Yes.
So when the general fund is covering the Sigma cost increases right now for those 19 positions, it'll be transferred to fee payers, but I'm assuming that the fees would be paid solely by the groundwater management Sigma beneficiaries.
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
And I say this because I know there's a complexity, because what was authorized was that these funds go into the water rights fund. And so we have to track them separately. So they're only used for the groundwater activities and support that program, and don't get commingled into, the other water rights fees. So it's definitely why we have Sigma involved in these meetings, because they're part of the fund itself.
Very good. Thank you.
Steve, your hand's up.
Yeah, again, kind of on these Sigma fees, as the general fund support drops off and those get shifted over to Sigma fees, I guess I'd anticipate having more of the GSAs participating in this particular fee conversation going forward. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, it definitely would be important for them to kind of be involved in this. Again, the reason this is a platform is when this program was approved, and then through the budget process, the Sigma program and/or fees were authorized to be deposited and tracked and expenditure use in the water rights fund. So as we start generating more and more revenue and we were able to be able to report on it, I would say yes. I think it is definitely an avenue and platform for those to participate in. I see John chimed in here also.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to agree with you, David, and agree with Steve that that would be our expectation, and we'll do some outreach to those GSAs, particularly the 6 that are potentially going into probation. And we have the fee structure all set up. The unknown with this right now is how many fee payers are going to be in the program. And then once we get an idea of that, then we may adjust the fees to be what we need it to be.
Kind of the early days of the initial fees for the Division of Water Rights.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So as we have Zach here, are there any other questions on item number 5? Okay, so I'm not hearing anything. Zach, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so again, moving to item 6, and I kind of touched on this earlier. I'll go over them again here. But again, keep in mind that these are staff recommendations at this time, which kind of John mentioned in our water quality meeting, as we kind of move into more the political side of things, working with the board members and kind of briefing them on, again, what staff's proposals are. Again, the board could, change it or advise us to, kind of go into a different direction. But as of right now, staff is proposing to increase again the annual per acre foot charge on the permits, licenses, and pending applications per each acre foot that's greater than 10 acre feet. And we're not proposing to change any of the base fees at this time. We're not proposing to make any changes to our FERC fees at this time. And then finally, as we do annually, we're proposing to increase the caps on the fees for the water rights applications and change petitions involving transfer of water based on the California Consumer Price Index. And as of right now, it's roughly around 7.3%. But we'll have, of course, when the staff report comes out, we'll have that number posted in there. Chuck, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. You mentioned that you're going to have a discussion with the board members sometime, I guess, before the September 19th board meeting. Do you know when that would be concluded prior to the September 19th meeting? And would there be an opportunity to be informed if there's any changes from what you've discussed today?
So the board meeting, kind of working our way back, the board meeting is on September 19th, which basically means that the agenda items and staff's report basically comes out 10 days prior to that. So roughly around September 9th. And then what that does is allows, stakeholders the opportunity to provide public comment, of course. So at that time, of course, you'll definitely see kind of the direction that the staff is proposing to the board. And in the next, in the next few weeks, staff will be putting together briefing documents and then meeting with the board members and executive staff. And then, of course, through those conversations, of course, will then, help us kind of move to what staff is going to finally propose. Now, again, Bob, at the board meetings, the board could direct us in, of course, a different direction also. if there's some major change in the next few days, that we could, kind of maybe reach out, we would do that. But at this point, it's until we kind of get into the whole briefing conversations with the board members and seeing, what they support and what direction they want to go in.
Okay, great.
So I'm not seeing any other questions at this time. We'll kind of move into item 7, open discussion. I know there's some program staff, if they want to kind of touch base on anything, here's a good opportunity, even if it's not for this upcoming fiscal year, or if there's anything you see kind of coming down the line. If you want to bring anything up, John already talked about the general fund investments. So that's already been touched on. So and or if there's any stakeholders that want to ask any questions or bring anything up, this is a good opportunity to do that. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Oh, there we go. Steve, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just thinking through to our next, to kind of the next meeting of this group based on next fiscal year.
Okay.
2 items I'd like to see us maybe be prepared to talk about at that early meeting is one is what percentage of the fee structure is paid by the base fees. So like this year, you're proposing a 3% increase on the per acre foot. It'd be interesting to know what percentage of the fee comes from that. I can't remember what the number is, $100 per permit or license. As we've taken the charge on the per acre fee for the last couple years, be interested in seeing how that's played out and whether we need to look at raising that base fee, putting some of this effort on the base fee in next year or the couple of future years here. So that's one item. And then the other is just kind of looking at the historic reserve, what has the reserve need been over the past 10 years or so? And let's try to nail down a number, because we kind of dance around the reserve number every one of our discussions, but I'd like to have maybe a more focused discussion just on that reserve in particular at our next meeting. And thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for your comments, Steve. Definitely, we can look at the base fee. I know that I think it's around $300 right now, and I will say everyone does pay it. It just doesn't generate a lot of revenue, and we have increased it over the years. Originally, it was around 100, and we're up to 300. But I will say you're right. It does capture fee payers that aren't seeing an increase this year. And so as we look at next year's fee setting process, it may be a good opportunity to make a proposal to adjust that fee. So but yeah, we can look at definitely what the percentage, of course, of the base fee goes towards the total, $30+ million in revenue. And we can also look at putting together a proposal on adjusting that as needed. So and then yeah, we can definitely lay out and especially now that we have kind of better year-end reports and things like that, kind of what the historic reserves look like, and see if we could kind of build in factors of what's caused that reserve to go up and down over the last, like you said, 10 years, if we can, kind of going back that far. So definitely Cassandra and I and Josh will put together on kind of the to-do list as we, we'll be moving into, the stakeholder meeting will probably be, late February, early March of 2024.
Thank you.
So I want to just kind of move into, again, next steps. As I mentioned, We are driving to the September 19th board meeting and presenting an item to the board for their consideration and adoption for the water rights fees. The board meeting is held in person in Sacramento at the Cal EPA building, and is also broadcast through Zoom and the platform. So 10 days prior to that meeting, roughly September 9th, the agenda item will come out and gives an opportunity for and gives direction, of course, how to make comments on it, and of course how to participate. So all that information will be provided, and then once staff and the board members receive the comments, then of course it gives us an opportunity to kind of also read those comments, and has the opportunity for the board to kind of start making their decision making based off of that. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, we do listen to all the comments that you mentioned, and that helps us kind of move forward as we start to talk to the board members. Definitely some of the comments I've heard today were about, well, let's see if we maybe just keep the fees the way they are and use the reserve, draw that down. So it's something that definitely that we would pass along to our board members of things that we've heard. And kind of go through the pros and cons of doing that. So, so definitely, just so staff do pass that along. So we'll definitely pass that along to our board members. So again, with that said, I want to thank, first of all, my staff here for putting this on, and then for program staff that are on the line also assisting us with today's call. And then also, to the stakeholders that have taken time out of their day to participate in this meeting. I definitely want to appreciate that. I do want to mention that we do have one more meeting tomorrow morning, which has to do with drinking water and our ELAP program. So that meeting starts tomorrow at 9. So that's a meeting you want to participate in. Please go ahead, and if you haven't already, go ahead and sign up through the Zoom, and we'll get you put on so you can participate in that meeting. Or of course you could just listen and watch online. So again, thank everyone for participating today, taking time out of your day. And then the final thing is if at any time you have any questions, you look at some of your reports and you kind of want further clarification, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Cassandra or Josh or John, and we'll be more than happy to meet with you guys. And if we need to bring in program staff, we can do that also. So again, everyone have a great day, and we'll be talking soon.